The old clock on the wall read 6:47 p.m. when Maya wiped down table number 12 for what felt like the 100th time that day. Her feet ached in the worn-out sneakers that had seen better days, but she couldn't afford new ones right now. Every dollar counted and every dollar had a purpose. The Sunshine Diner wasn't the fanciest place in town. Actually, it wasn't fancy at all. The red vinyl seats had cracks that someone had tried to fix with duct tape, and the fluorescent lights above flickered just enough to give everyone a headache if they stayed too long. The coffee machine made weird noises that sounded like a dying cat, and the air conditioning only worked when it felt like it. But this place was home to Maya. She had been working here for almost 3 years now, ever since she turned 25 and life decided to throw her a curveball. Her younger brother Jake needed surgery that their insurance wouldn't fully cover, and someone had to step up. That someone was Maya. She didn't mind the work, really. The customers were mostly good people. There was old Mr. Peterson who came in every morning at exactly 7:15 for his black coffee and wheat toast. He always left a $5 tip even though his order only cost $3. Then there was Mrs. Chen who brought her twin boys in every Friday after school for milkshakes and always made sure they said please and thank you. Maya had learned their names, their usual orders, and even their family stories. Mr. Peterson's wife had passed away 2 years ago, and he said the diner reminded him of the place where they had their first date. Mrs. Chen was a single mom working 2 jobs, and Friday milkshakes were her way of making sure her boys knew they were loved. These stories mattered to Maya. They reminded her that everyone who walked through those doors was carrying something, whether it was grief, hope, exhaustion, or joy. Her job wasn't just about bringing food and refilling coffee cups. It was about being part of people's lives, even if just for a moment. The dinner rush had been particularly crazy that Tuesday. The high school football team had won their first game of the season, and half the town had come in to celebrate. Maya had been running around nonstop, taking orders, serving food, cleaning tables, and trying to keep up with the chaos. Her uniform was stained with ketchup from a dropped plate, and her hair had escaped from its ponytail hours ago. Now, as the evening settled down, Maya finally had a moment to breathe. The football team had moved their celebration to the pizza place down the street, and the diner was left with just a few regular customers finishing their meals. She was restocking the napkin dispensers when she heard the rumble of an expensive car outside. Through the window, she could see a sleek black sedan pulling into the parking lot. The car looked like it cost more than Maya made in 2 years. She watched as the driver's door opened and a man stepped out. He was wearing a dark suit that fit him perfectly, the kind of suit that screamed money. But something about the way he moved caught Maya's attention. He looked around carefully, almost nervously, before walking toward the diner. He kept his head down and had a baseball cap pulled low over his face. Maya had seen this before. Sometimes people came to the Sunshine Diner because they wanted to disappear for a while. Maybe they were going through a divorce, or they had lost their job, or they just needed somewhere quiet to think. The diner had a way of making people feel invisible when they needed to be. The man chose the corner booth, the one that faced away from the street. Maya grabbed a menu and a glass of water and walked over to greet him. As she got closer, she noticed his hands. They were clean and well manicured, but there were small scars on his knuckles and his palms looked like they had seen some hard work at some point in his life. "Good evening," Maya said with her usual smile. "Welcome to the Sunshine Diner. Can I start you off with something to drink?" The man looked up briefly and Maya caught a glimpse of tired eyes. "Coffee, please, black." His voice was quiet and polite, but there was something about it that seemed familiar. Maya couldn't quite place it, but she had the strange feeling that she had heard that voice before. "Coming right up," she said. "Would you like to hear about our specials tonight?" "What do you recommend?" he asked, and this time he actually looked at her when he spoke. Maya was surprised by the question. Most customers knew what they wanted or just ordered whatever sounded good, but this man seemed genuinely interested in her opinion. "Well," she said, thinking for a moment, "the meatloaf is really good today. Our cook makes it with a special glaze that gives it a nice flavor. It comes with mashed potatoes and green beans. It's comfort food, you know? The kind of meal that makes you feel like someone cares about you." The man smiled slightly and Maya noticed that his whole face changed when he did. "That sounds perfect," he said. As Maya walked back to get his coffee, she found herself wondering about this mysterious customer. There was something different about him, something that set him apart from the usual crowd. Maybe it was the expensive clothes in a place where most people wore jeans and t-shirts. Maybe it was the way he seemed to be hiding from something. Or maybe it was just the fact that he had asked for her recommendation and actually seemed to care about her answer. She poured his coffee and brought it back to his table. "Your meatloaf will be ready in about 10 minutes, she said. "Thank you," he replied. And again, Maya had that strange feeling of familiarity. While she waited for his order to come up, Maya went about her usual routine. She refilled sugar dispensers, wiped down tables, and chatted with the few remaining customers. But she kept finding herself glancing over at the man in the corner booth. He had pulled out a small notebook and was writing in it with intense concentration. Every few minutes he would stop and stare out the window, as if he was thinking about something important. Then he would go back to writing. Maya wondered what he was working on. Maybe he was a writer trying to finish a novel. Maybe he was a businessman planning his next big deal. Or maybe he was just someone trying to figure out his life, writing down his thoughts to make sense of them. When the cook rang the bell to signal that the order was ready, Maya carefully carried the plate to the corner booth. The meatloaf looked perfect, with the glaze glistening under the diner's lights. The mashed potatoes were fluffy and white, and the green beans were cooked just right. "Here you go," Maya said, setting the plate down in front of him. "Be careful, the plate is hot." "This looks amazing," the man said, and Maya could tell he meant it. "Thank you." "You're welcome," Maya replied. "Let me know if you need anything else." As she walked away, Maya felt a warm feeling in her chest. There was something about this customer that reminded her why she loved her job. It wasn't about the money, though she certainly needed that. It was about the connections, the small moments of kindness, the chance to make someone's day a little bit better. She had no idea that this ordinary Tuesday evening was about to become anything but ordinary. She had no idea that the man in the expensive suit eating meatloaf in her corner booth was about to change her life forever. All Maya knew was that she had served a good meal to someone who seemed to appreciate it, and that was enough for now. Maya couldn't help but notice how the mysterious man ate his meatloaf. He took his time with each bite, like he was actually tasting the food instead of just eating to fill his stomach. Most people rushed through their meals, especially during dinner time, but this customer seemed to be savoring every moment. She busied herself with cleaning the coffee machine, a task that gave her a perfect view of the corner booth. The man had put away his notebook and was now just sitting quietly, occasionally looking out the window at the small town street. Maya wondered what he saw when he looked out there. Did he see the same tired buildings and empty storefronts that she saw every day? Or did he see something different? The town of Riverside had seen better days. The big factory that used to employ half the town had closed down 5 years ago, and things had been struggling ever since. Young people left for bigger cities as soon as they graduated high school, and the ones who stayed behind had to work twice as hard just to make ends meet. Maya had been one of the ones who stayed. She could have left after high school like her friends did. She had good grades and could have gotten into college in the city. But when her dad got sick during her senior year, someone needed to help keep the family together. That someone was Maya. She didn't regret her choice, but sometimes she wondered what her life would have been like if she had taken a different path. Would she be sitting in some fancy office right now, wearing a business suit and making important decisions? Or would she be traveling the world, seeing places she had only read about in books? "Excuse me, miss?" The man's voice interrupted her thoughts. Maya walked over to his table. "Yes, sir? How's everything tasting?" "It's wonderful," he said, and he seemed to really mean it. "I was wondering, though, if you could tell me a bit about this town." "I'm not from around here." Maya was surprised by the question. Most visitors to Riverside were just passing through on their way to somewhere more interesting. It was rare for someone to actually want to know about the town itself. "Well," Maya said, glancing around to make sure her other customers were okay, "what would you like?" These were unusual questions for a customer to ask, but something about the way he asked them made Maya think he really wanted to know. She found herself sitting down across from him, something she normally never did with customers. "It's a good place," she said carefully. "People here look out for each other." When Mrs. Rodriguez broke her hip last winter, the whole neighborhood took turns bringing her groceries and checking on her. When the Anderson family lost their house in a fire, everyone pitched in to help them get back on their feet. The man nodded, encouraging her to continue. "But it's been hard since the factory closed," Maya admitted. A lot of families had to move away to find work. Some of the older folks lost their retirement savings when the company went bankrupt. The main street has a lot of empty stores now. What kind of work do people do now? He asked. Whatever they can find, Maya said. Some people drive an hour each way to work in the next town over. Others started their own small businesses, though that's tough without much money to invest. A few people work online now, doing computer stuff I don't really understand. Maya found herself talking more than she had intended. There was something about this stranger that made her feel comfortable, like she could trust him with her thoughts. What about you? He asked. Have you always worked here? I've been here for 3 years, Maya said. Before that, I was planning to go to college. I wanted to study nursing, but life had other plans. She told him about her brother Jake, who was born with a heart condition that required expensive surgery. She told him about her parents who worked multiple jobs but still couldn't afford all the medical bills. She told him about her decision to stay home and help, about working at the diner to contribute to Jake's medical fund. That's quite a sacrifice, the man said quietly. It doesn't feel like a sacrifice, Maya replied. Jake is my little brother. He's smart and funny and he has big dreams. If working here means he gets to chase those dreams, then it's worth it. The man was quiet for a moment, and Maya wondered if she had shared too much. She wasn't usually so open with strangers. I'm sorry, she said, starting to stand up. I should let you finish your meal in peace. Please don't apologize, he said. I asked because I genuinely wanted to know. You've given me a lot to think about. Maya noticed that he had finished most of his meal while they talked. Can I get you anything else? Dessert? More coffee? More coffee would be great, he said. And maybe you could tell me about some of the other people who come in here. If you don't mind, that is. Maya found herself settling back into the booth. There was something about this man's interest that felt different from idle curiosity. He listened carefully to every word she said, asking thoughtful questions that showed he was really paying attention. She told him about Mr. Peterson, who came in every morning and always asked about her family. She told him about Mrs. Chen and her twin boys, who saved up their allowance money to buy their mom a birthday present at the dollar store. She told him about Tony, the truck driver who stopped by every few weeks and always left a big tip because he said Maya reminded him of his daughter. It sounds like you know everyone's story, the man observed. That's what I love about this job, Maya said. Everyone who walks through that door has a story. Some are happy, some are sad, some are complicated. But they're all real, you know? They're all human. As she talked, Maya noticed that the man seemed to be studying everything around him with new interest. He looked at the worn-out booths, the flickering lights, the handwritten signs on the wall. But instead of seeing these things as flaws, he seemed to be seeing them as part of the diner's character. This place has been here for a long time, Maya said, following his gaze. The owner, Mr. Williams, has been running it for 30 years. He's talked about retiring, but he can't afford to yet. The equipment is old and breaks down a lot, but somehow we keep things running. It has a good feeling to it, the man said. You can tell it's a place where people care about each other. Maya smiled. That's exactly right. Mr. Williams always says that we're not just serving food, we're serving hope. When someone comes in here feeling down, we try to send them out feeling a little bit better. The evening crowd was thinning out now, and Maya knew she should check on her other tables. But something about this conversation felt important, like it mattered in a way she couldn't quite explain. I should probably let you eat in peace, she said reluctantly. Actually, I'm finished, the man said, pushing his empty plate away. That was one of the best meals I've had in a long time. Maya beamed with pride. I'll make sure to tell our cook, Frank. He'll be so happy to hear that. As she cleared his plate, Maya noticed that the man was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. It was like he was seeing something in her that she didn't see in herself. Thank you, he said as she refilled his coffee cup one more time, for the meal and for the conversation. You've helped me understand something important. Maya wasn't sure what he meant by that, but something in his tone made her think this conversation had meant as much to him as it had to her. She went back to her other tables, but she kept thinking about the mysterious customer in the corner booth. There was definitely something different about him, something that set him apart from anyone else who had ever come into the diner. Maya couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting was going to be important somehow, though she had no idea why. All she knew was that for the first time in a long time, she felt like someone had really listened to her, really heard what she had to say, and that feeling was worth more than any tip he could leave. Maya was refilling the ketchup bottles when the man's phone rang. The sound was sharp in the quiet diner, and she noticed him hesitate before answering. His voice dropped to almost a whisper, but in the small space Maya couldn't help but hear pieces of his conversation. "Yes, I'm here now," he said quietly. "I wanted to see it for myself before we make any decisions." Maya tried not to listen, but something about his tone made her pay attention without meaning to. "The reports don't tell the whole story," he continued. "These are real people with real lives. We need to think about the impact on the community." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Those words sounded important, like business talk. Big business talk. "I know the numbers look good on paper," the man said, glancing around the diner. "But there's more to consider here. Give me another day to think about it." When he hung up, Maya noticed his hands were shaking slightly. She had seen that look before, on her dad's face when he had to make tough decisions about their family's finances. It was the look of someone carrying a heavy responsibility. She walked over with the coffee pot, trying to act casual. "More coffee?" "Please," he said. But his mind seemed to be somewhere else entirely. As Maya poured the coffee, she got a better look at his face. With his baseball cap pushed back a little, she could see his features more clearly. There was something familiar about his jawline, the shape of his eyes. She had definitely seen this face before, but where? "Everything okay?" Maya asked, genuinely concerned. The man looked up at her, and for a moment their eyes met directly. Maya felt her breath catch in her throat. She knew those eyes. She had seen them in magazines, on news websites, in the business section of the newspaper that Mr. Peterson sometimes left behind. This was David Chen, the billionaire. The tech genius who had built his company from nothing and was now worth more money than Maya could even imagine. She had seen his picture just last week in a magazine article about the richest people under 40. But what was David Chen doing in the Sunshine Diner in Riverside? Why was he sitting here eating meatloaf and asking about the town? Maya's hand started to tremble as the realization hit her. The phone conversation, the questions about the community, the way he had been studying everything around him. He wasn't here as a tourist. He was here on business. "You're David Chen," she said quietly, setting down the coffee pot with shaking hands. David's expression changed instantly. The relaxed, almost vulnerable look he had been wearing disappeared, replaced by the guarded expression of someone who was used to being recognized and not always liking what came next. "I am," he said simply. Maya's mind was racing. David Chen was here in their little town, asking questions about the community, talking about impact and decisions. There could only be one reason for that. "You're thinking about buying something here," Maya said, the pieces falling into place, "or building something. That's why you wanted to know about the town." David studied her face carefully. "You're very perceptive." "It's not hard to figure out," Maya said, sitting down across from him again. "Rich businessman shows up in a struggling town, asks a lot of questions about the community, takes phone calls about reports and numbers. You're either here to help us or to take advantage of us. And which do you think it is?" David asked. Maya looked at him for a long moment. She thought about the way he had listened to her stories, the genuine interest he had shown in the people of Riverside. She thought about how he had eaten his meal slowly, appreciating it instead of just consuming it. She thought about the way his hands had shaken after that phone call. "I think you're trying to figure that out yourself," she said finally. David leaned back in his seat, and Maya saw something like surprise cross his face. "You really are perceptive. So what's the plan?" Maya asked. "Are you going to buy up all the empty buildings on Main Street and turn them into something fancy that none of us can afford? Or are you thinking of building a factory that will bring jobs but might also bring problems?" "It's complicated," David said. "It always is," Maya replied. "But complicated doesn't mean impossible. It just means you have to think harder about the right thing to do." David was quiet for a moment, and Maya wondered if she had said too much. She wasn't used to talking to billionaires, and she definitely wasn't used to challenging them, but something about this situation felt too important to hold back. "Can I ask you something?" David said finally. "Sure. If you could change one thing about this town, what would it be?" Maya didn't have to think about the answer. "Jobs. Good jobs that pay enough for people to support their families and still have something left over for emergencies. Jobs that make people feel proud of what they do." "What kind of jobs?" "Jobs that use people's brains, not just their backs," Maya said. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with physical work. But a lot of people here are smart and creative and capable of doing more than just manual labor. They just never got the chance to show it, like you, David said. Maya blushed. I was going to study nursing. I wanted to help people, to make a difference in their lives. But life had other plans. What if life could have different plans? David asked. Maya wasn't sure what he meant by that, but something in his tone made her think this conversation was heading somewhere important. I've been thinking about building a technology center here, David said slowly. A place where people could learn new skills, where we could bring in companies that need workers but can train them on the job. A place that could provide good jobs for people who want to stay in their hometown. Maya felt her heart start to beat faster. That sounds amazing, she said. But why here? Why Riverside? Because places like this are the heart of America, David said. Because the people here have values that matter. Because when Mrs. Rodriguez breaks her hip, the whole neighborhood helps her out. Because when the Anderson family loses their house, everyone pitches in. You can't buy that kind of community spirit, and you can't fake it. Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes. Someone finally understood what made their town special. But here's the thing, David continued. I don't want to be another outsider coming in and telling people what's good for them. I need to understand this community from the inside. I need to work with people who know what this place really needs. So what are you going to do? Maya asked. I'm going to ask for help, David said. From people like you who understand what this town is really about. Maya stared at him in disbelief. People like me? Especially people like you, David said. You know everyone's story. You understand what makes this community work. You care about people, not just profits. That's exactly the kind of perspective I need. Maya's mind was spinning. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. Billionaires didn't walk into small-town diners and ask waitresses for business advice. I don't understand, she said. I'm offering you a job, David said simply. I want you to help me figure out how to do this right. How to bring opportunities to Riverside without destroying what makes it special. Maya felt like she was in a dream. But I don't know anything about business. I'm just a waitress. You're not just anything, David said firmly. You're someone who cares about people. You're someone who understands community. You're someone who asks the right questions and isn't afraid to speak the truth. Those are exactly the qualifications I need. Maya looked around the diner at the cracked vinyl seats and flickering lights, at the handwritten signs and the old coffee machine. This place had been her whole world for 3 years. The idea of leaving it felt impossible. But then she thought about Jake, about his medical bills and his dreams for the future. She thought about Mr. Peterson and Mrs. Chen and all the other people who came through those doors every day. She thought about the empty buildings on Main Street and the young people who left town because there was nothing here for them. Maybe this was her chance to help not just her own family, but her whole community. Maybe this was how she could make the difference she had always wanted to make. I need to think about it, Maya said finally. Of course, David said. Take all the time you need. But Maya, I want you to know something. This conversation tonight has changed everything for me. You've helped me see this town through different eyes. Whatever you decide, you've already made a difference. As Maya sat there looking at David Chen, the billionaire who had walked into her diner and turned her world upside down, she realized that sometimes the most extraordinary things really do happen on the most ordinary days. All she had to do now was figure out what to do about it. Maya barely slept that night. She kept replaying the conversation with David Chen over and over in her mind, wondering if it had really happened or if it was all just a crazy dream. But when she woke up and found his business card on her dresser, where she had placed it carefully the night before, she knew it was real. The morning shift at the diner felt different. Every table she wiped, every cup of coffee she poured, every conversation with regular customers felt like it might be one of the last. Mr. Peterson came in at his usual time, and Maya found herself studying his face, wondering what he would think about David's plans for the town. You look tired this morning. Maya, Mr. Peterson said as she brought him his usual black coffee and wheat toast. Everything okay? Maya hesitated. She wanted to tell him about David, about the job offer, about the possibility of real change coming to Riverside. But David had asked her to keep their conversation private until he made his final decision about the project. Just couldn't sleep, she said. Too much on my mind, I guess. Well, you take care of yourself, Mr. Peterson said kindly. This town needs people like you. Those words hit Maya harder than Mr. Peterson could have known. This town needs people like you. But what if she could help the town more by taking David's offer than by staying and serving coffee? Around noon, Maya's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from David. Would you be willing to meet me this afternoon? I'd like to show you something. Maya's hands shook as she typed back. I get off work at 3. Where? The old Peterson manufacturing building. I'll wait for you in the parking lot. Maya stared at the message. The old factory. The place that had once been the heart of Riverside's economy. The place where her father had worked for 15 years before it closed down. If David was planning to build something, that would be the perfect location. The rest of her shift dragged by slowly. Maya made mistakes she never made, like bringing the wrong order to table 5 and forgetting to refill Mrs. Chen's coffee. Her mind was completely focused on 3 o'clock. When her shift finally ended, Maya drove to the old factory with her heart pounding. The building looked even more run down than she remembered, with broken windows and weeds growing through cracks in the parking lot. But as she pulled up, she saw David's black sedan waiting, and she saw David himself standing next to it. Looking up at the building, "Thanks for coming," he said as Maya got out of her car. "What are we doing here?" Maya asked. "I wanted you to see what I'm thinking about," David said, "and I wanted to hear what you think." They walked around the building together, David pointing out different areas and explaining his vision. He talked about converting the main factory floor into a training center where people could learn computer programming, digital marketing, and other modern skills. He talked about bringing in small tech companies that could employ local workers. He talked about a childcare center so that working parents wouldn't have to worry about their kids. The building has good bones, David said as they stood in what used to be the main entrance. With some work, it could be beautiful again. Maya tried to imagine it. The broken windows replaced with new glass. The cracked parking lot repaved. People walking in and out every day, going to jobs that paid well and gave them hope for the future. It sounds amazing, Maya said. But why do you need me? You're the successful businessman. You could hire consultants and experts and people with degrees. David stopped walking and turned to face her. Because those people don't know Mrs. Rodriguez or the Anderson family or Mr. Peterson. They don't understand that this isn't just about creating jobs. It's about rebuilding a community. They would look at this place and see numbers and statistics. You look at it and see people. Maya felt a flutter of excitement, but also a wave of fear. I don't have any experience with this kind of thing. Neither did I when I started my first company, David said. Experience is important, but passion and understanding are more important. You can learn the technical stuff. You can't learn to care about people the way you do. They continued walking around the building, and David explained more of his plans. He talked about partnering with local schools to create programs for high school students. He talked about helping existing small businesses grow and expand. He talked about creating a fund to help people start their own companies. The goal isn't just to bring jobs here, David said. It's to create a sustainable economy that can keep growing. I want people's kids to be able to stay in Riverside if they want to. Not because there's nothing else for them, but because there are real opportunities here. Maya thought about her brother Jake, who was only 16 but already talking about leaving town after graduation. What if he didn't have to leave? What if there were opportunities here for someone with his intelligence and ambition? How would this work exactly? Maya asked. I mean, if I said yes, what would I actually do? You'd be my community liaison, David said. You'd help me understand what the town really needs. You'd work with local leaders to make sure we're doing things right. You'd help design programs that actually serve the people who live here. And you'd pay me to do this? David smiled. Maya, I'd pay you very well to do this. This project is worth millions of dollars to my company. Having the right person to help guide it is worth whatever it costs. Maya's mind immediately went to Jake's medical bills, to her parents' mortgage, to all the financial stress that had been weighing on her family for years. With a good salary, she could take care of all of that and still have money left over. But then she thought about the diner, about Mr. Williams who had been so good to her, about the customers who had become like family. How could she just walk away from all of that? I need to ask you something, Maya said. And I need you to be honest with me. Of course, and if I say no, will you still go ahead with this project? David was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, he said finally. Without someone like you helping me, I'm not sure I can do it right. And if I can't do it right, then maybe I shouldn't do it at all. Maya felt the weight of that responsibility settle on her shoulders. It wasn't just about her job anymore. It was about the future of her entire town. "Can I have some time to think about it?" she asked. "Take all the time you need," David said. "But Maya, I want you to know something. Whatever you decide, this conversation has already changed how I think about business. You've reminded me that behind every decision there are real people with real lives. That's a lesson worth more than any profit." As they walked back to their cars, Maya felt like she was standing at a crossroads. One path led back to the diner, to the familiar routine of serving coffee and listening to people's stories. The other path led into unknown territory, to challenges she had never faced and responsibilities she had never imagined. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said as they reached their cars. "Anything. Why did you really come to the diner last night? I mean, if you're thinking about investing in this town, there are probably better ways to research it than eating meatloaf and talking to a waitress." David smiled, and Maya saw something vulnerable in his expression. "Because I've learned that the most important things about a place aren't in the reports and statistics. They're in the stories people tell, and the way they treat each other. I wanted to understand what kind of place Riverside really is." "And what did you decide?" "I decided it's the kind of place worth investing in," David said. "But only if I can do it right. Only if I can do it with people who understand what makes it special." As Maya drove home that afternoon, she knew she had the biggest decision of her life to make. Part of her was terrified of leaving everything she knew behind, but another part of her was excited about the possibility of making a real difference, not just for her own family, but for everyone in Riverside. She thought about all the people who came into the diner every day, all the stories of struggle and hope she had heard over the years. Maybe this was her chance to help write a different kind of story, one where people didn't have to choose between staying home and having opportunities. By the time she pulled into her driveway, Maya knew what she had to do. She just had to find the courage to do it. Maya spent the entire evening talking with her family about David's offer. Her parents were amazed that someone like David Chen had noticed their daughter, but they were also worried about her leaving the security of her job at the diner for something completely unknown. "It sounds too good to be true," her mother said as they sat around the kitchen table. "What if it doesn't work out? What if he changes his mind?" "What if it does work out?" Maya replied. "What if this is the chance we've been waiting for?" Her brother Jake was the most excited about the possibility. "Maya, this could change everything," he said. "Not just for our family, but for the whole town. You have to say yes." "It's not that simple," Maya said. "I've never done anything like this before. What if I mess it up?" "You won't," her father said quietly. He had been mostly silent during the discussion, but now he leaned forward and looked directly at his daughter. "Maya, you've been taking care of this family and helping our neighbors for years. You know this community better than anyone. If this man is smart enough to see that, then maybe you should trust his judgment." That night, Maya called David and arranged to meet him the next morning. She had made her decision, but she wanted to discuss the details before making it official. They met at a small coffee shop in the next town over, away from the curious eyes of Riverside residents. Maya had barely slept, but she felt more certain about her choice than she had felt about anything in a long time. "I'll do it," Maya said as soon as David sat down. "I'll take the job." David's face lit up with a smile that transformed his entire appearance. "That's wonderful news, but I want to make sure you're completely comfortable with everything." Over the next hour, they discussed salary, benefits, and responsibilities. Maya was shocked when David told her how much he was willing to pay her. It was more money than she had ever imagined making, enough to take care of her family's financial problems and still have plenty left over. But even more important than the money was the scope of what she would be doing. David wanted her to be involved in every aspect of the project, from the initial planning stages to the day-to-day operations once everything was up and running. "I want you to help me hire local people whenever possible," David explained. "I want you to make sure our training programs actually prepare people for the jobs we're creating. I want you to be the voice of the community in every decision we make." Maya felt a surge of excitement mixed with nervousness. "When would I start?" "As soon as you're ready," David said. "But I understand if you need time to give notice at the diner." Maya thought about Mr. Williams, who had been so good to her during her time at the Sunshine Diner. She owed him the courtesy of proper notice and a chance to find someone to replace her. "I'll need 2 weeks," Maya said. "Perfect," David replied. That will give me time to start the legal paperwork for the project and set up an office here in town." As they shook hands to make the agreement official, Maya felt like she was stepping into a completely different life. The scared, uncertain feeling was still there, but it was overwhelmed by excitement and hope. Word spread quickly through Riverside about Maya's new job. The reaction was mixed, as she had expected. Some people were excited about the possibility of new opportunities coming to town. Others were skeptical about outsiders making promises they might not keep. Mr. Peterson was one of the most supportive. "I'm proud of you, Maya," he said when she served him his coffee for what would be one of the last times. "You're going to do great things for this town." Mrs. Chen was more cautious. "Just make sure this man keeps his promises," she said. "We've been disappointed before." Maya understood the skepticism. Riverside had been let down by outside promises in the past. But something about David felt different. Maybe it was the way he had listened to her stories about the community, or the way he had asked thoughtful questions instead of just making assumptions. On Maya's last day at the diner, Mr. Williams threw a small party for her. Regular customers stopped by throughout the day to wish her well, and Maya found herself crying more than once as people shared what her service had meant to them. "You've been more than just a waitress here," Mr. Williams said as he presented her with a small gift, a photo of the diner with all the staff and regular customers. "You've been the heart of this place. But I know you're going to do amazing things in your new job." Maya's first week working with David was overwhelming. She had an office in a small building downtown, with her own computer and phone and business cards that read, "Maya Rodriguez, Community Relations Director." It felt surreal to see her name with such an important-sounding title. David introduced her to architects, contractors, and business consultants who would be working on the project. At first, Maya felt intimidated by all these professionals with their college degrees and years of experience. But David made it clear that her opinion was not only welcome, it was essential. "Maya knows this community better than any of us," he told the team during their first meeting. "When she speaks, I want everyone to listen." Maya's first major contribution was suggesting changes to the child care center plans. The original design looked beautiful, but Maya knew it wouldn't work for the families who would actually use it. "Working parents here often have irregular schedules," she explained to the architects. "They need a place that can handle early drop-offs and late pickups. And a lot of families have more than one child, so you need spaces for different age groups." The architects took her suggestions seriously, redesigning the space to be more practical and family-friendly. Maya felt a surge of pride when she saw how her input was making the project better. As the weeks went by, Maya found herself growing more confident in her new role. She organized town hall meetings where residents could ask questions and share concerns about the project. She worked with local schools to develop internship programs. She helped David understand the subtle social dynamics of the community that outsiders would never have noticed. 6 months after that first meeting at the Sunshine Diner, construction began on the Riverside Innovation Center. Maya stood with David at the groundbreaking ceremony, watching as the first shovels of dirt were turned on what had once been an empty factory. "None of this would have happened without you," David told her as they watched the ceremony. "None of this would have happened without you either," Maya replied. "But I think we make a good team." The project wasn't without challenges. There were construction delays, permit issues, and some resistance from people who were suspicious of change. But Maya's role as the bridge between David's team and the community helped smooth over most of the difficulties. A year later, the Innovation Center opened its doors. The transformation was remarkable. The old, rundown factory building had been converted into a modern, bright workspace filled with training rooms, offices for small tech companies, and the child care center that Maya had helped design. The opening day celebration drew hundreds of people from Riverside and the surrounding towns. Maya watched with tears in her eyes as families toured the building. Children played in the new child care center, and young adults signed up for training programs that could lead to well-paying jobs. Mr. Peterson was there, along with Mrs. Chen and her twin boys. Even Mr. Williams from the diner came to see what Maya had helped create. "I'm so proud of you," her mother whispered as they stood together watching the celebration. "This is just the beginning." Maya replied she was right. Over the next 2 years, the Innovation Center became the catalyst for a complete transformation of Riverside. New businesses opened on Main Street to serve the center's workers. Young people who had left town started coming back. Property values increased, but David had worked with Maya to ensure that longtime residents weren't pushed out by rising costs. Maya's brother Jake was one of the first graduates of the center's high school internship program. Instead of leaving town after graduation, he stayed to attend the community college satellite program that David had helped establish. He was studying computer programming and had already received job offers from 2 companies in the Innovation Center. 3 years after that first meeting at the Sunshine Diner, Maya found herself back there for lunch. The diner looked exactly the same, but everything else had changed. Mr. Williams had been able to renovate the kitchen with the increased business from Innovation Center workers. He had hired 2 new waitresses to handle the crowds. Maya ordered the meatloaf special just like David had done that first night. As she ate, she thought about how one conversation, one moment of connection between 2 strangers, had changed the entire trajectory of her life and her community. David had taught her that extraordinary opportunities often come disguised as ordinary moments. Maya had taught him that the best business decisions are the ones that put people first. Together they had proven that when someone with resources and someone with heart work together, amazing things can happen. The most remarkable part wasn't the money or the prestige or even the success of the Innovation Center. The most remarkable part was that Maya had found a way to help her community while staying true to what she loved most about it: the connections between people, the stories that matter, and the belief that everyone deserves a chance to build a better life. Sometimes the biggest changes really do start with the smallest moments. Sometimes a billionaire walks into a small-town diner and finds exactly what he's been looking for, and sometimes a waitress discovers that the skills she's been using to serve coffee and comfort to her neighbors are exactly the skills the world needs. Maya's story became legendary in Riverside, but she never forgot where it all started, with a simple question about the meatloaf special and a willingness to see the person behind the expensive suit.